Hey, what's up, guys? Guardian here, coming guys with a deck profile. Today we're going to be going over my PBO deck, which I have not profiled on the channel for a really long time. Pretty much since set 5 came out, pretty much. I profiled it once when the set came out, but yeah, decided not to revisit it. I was just more focused on other decks like MLB and that. Didn't really feel like jumping back over to PBO anytime soon, but alas, we did have a reprint of Cliodhna, the Grade 2 PBO promo from the Triple Drive booster. And I thought, you know what? I actually forgot to get that card. Let's pick it up and experiment with the deck again. The deck is okay, I would say. It definitely has something going for it, but I can't lie, it definitely does feel a bit clunky in terms of the design of the deck. But we'll just see where it goes in the future. I definitely feel like they could give the deck something else to kind of streamline it a bit more, make it a little bit less awkward, but it's definitely got some cool things going for it, and you kind of need to design it around PBO to sort of push back against like the multiple retire that you've got to do for a skill. But either way, let's get into the deck. So, of course, first of all, for ride line, I did test Blasted Javelin in the ride line because part of me did want to have the Shadow Paladin aesthetic. And the reason Javelin can sometimes be okay is that it allows you to hold on to that extra soul over the Meren Wingle package, because with this one, you pretty much have to call the Wingle out so you can retire it for Blaster Dark and to get his Twin Drive. Whereas with the Javelin one, you have to sort of sacrifice the top card of your deck, and RNG can just suck sometimes with Javelin because I don't know what it is, but every time Javelin just called something from the top of the deck, it was always a trigger. So I don't know why that happens, but it just does. I played Bastion before, and that ride line also does the same thing apparently. It's always the heal trigger as well. But yeah, I decided to go for the Meren package with Wingle because at least with this way, I can just get rid of a soul essentially instead of getting rid of something like important from my deck. And also, I was kind of wondering if the soul would have been important for like other soul blasting costs, but honestly, I feel like the soul in this deck is like manageable. As long as you don't go like too crazy with it, you should be able to pay for most of the cards that ask for soul blast in this deck, rather fine. So yeah, I feel like the Wingle Meren package is fine in the deck. Of course, Dark getting the Twin Drive on the Grade 2 turn, really solid, really good. And of course, we have PBO. Which will go over his skills once I show you the Persona Ride copies, which of course we are playing. So PBO is kind of cool in that it kind of wants you to, well, it basically wants you to like manage your resources, and that you need to retire 2 of your rear guards for you to call a Blaster Dark from your soul or your drop, and then both PBO and Dark will get 10k as long as your opponent's Vanguard's a Grade 3. So you get 2 pretty solid attackers, since Dark will be 25, since you got rid of one of your reguards that turn, so that's good. And also PBO does have the innate ability to gain a critical as long as Dragon is in your soul, which we have ways of getting that into the soul rather easily. So yeah. Now to go along with the PBO, we do of course play a couple of copies of the Dragon, but I decided to go for just 3 copies. If you wanted to play the 4th one, I wouldn't blame you because, again, just consistency is a factor for this deck. If you want to like go like full on for the Dragon play to get the critical. But I have an issue with Dragon in that it's just a vanilla in this deck. Like, the only purpose this card has is to get it into Soul for PBO. And that is literally it. And I don't mind playing 3 because we have a lot more filtering capabilities in the deck now and a lot more draw, to where I feel like we should be consistent enough to see this. And even if we don't, it's not like the end of the world because like, like the 4th copy of this, I don't like the idea of playing 4 vanillas in the deck that just don't do anything. So I feel like a middle ground for this is 3, just because it gives you enough to hopefully see it with all your filtering and your draw. But you're not playing the maximum of 4, so you have to like sacrifice another card slot that could have been used for something else. So I feel like 3 is a good middle ground for the card, so that's what I decided to go on. But yeah, they're all blasters, so that's really cool. So now we can actually utilize the power of Emmeline for the Grade 2s. So yeah, I haven't actually played this deck since Emmeline came out, which is kind of weird. And of course, Emmeline is solid because it just filters for blasters and then either adds them to hand as long as you discard a card or calls them the rear. So you can actually have a pretty decent early game with this deck on your grade 2 turn, but that's where your soul can be a little bit iffy if you kind of go a bit too hard on the Soul Blast. Because we also do play the Spiral Cuties in this deck for the discard for the right deck, so that also costs soul. So you do have to be careful with it and keep that in mind. But of course, Emmeline does gain the extra power every time you attack with a blaster. So your PBO and your Blaster Dark, when that swings, will give this basically just a free 10,000 power, which is really cool. Now, we do have the new promo, new quotation marks, the reprint promo, which is Cliodhna. So this card's pretty cool. So when you retire her for your Blaster Vanguard, basically, she counts as 2 units. So this is really nice because now we don't neg as much for PBO now. We now just do a 1-for-1 because we get the Dark back as well. But she has a really nice skill, second skill, in that when she is retired, you can target your Blaster Dark as long as your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3. So you can't do this if you're going first. It is a going second play. You can target your Blaster Dark, and it gains the red text skill of when it attacks, you can discard a card from your hand to enable it to do drive checks that turn, which is pretty nice because, of course, Dark has the Counterblast skill to kill one of your rearguards and then kill one of your opponents, and it gets drive +1, which means you can do a triple drive. You can do a twin drive with Blaster Dark, which is pretty cool. And this is nice because the attack pattern really with this is that you want to attack with this first, then attack with your PBO, bring out your Dark, then attack with Dark, and then hopefully you might have an Emmeline in the other rearguard column, which means any triggers that you see from the PBO or the Dark, you could just put onto the Emmeline. Emmeline's already 20k on her own, and then hopefully you can get a bigger through that. So, yeah. So she's pretty cool, but the other thing is that your Blaster Dark does retire itself at the end of the battle if you do decide to do the drive check ability. And this is kind of a good and a bad thing, because the bad thing is that when it comes to card advantage, you are overall taking a neg, because the card that you brought back to make up for the 1-for-1 exchange for the Cliodhna is now going afterwards, which means you did a -1. But then it's like, you kind of want to do that, because if you go against a matchup like Chronojet, for example, if they spin your Blaster Dark to your deck, or your right deck, because the thing that sucks is if your right deck Blaster Dark gets spun into the main deck, it actually goes back into the right deck, and you can't get that back. So you do need to play some main deck Blaster Darks to kind of counteract that. Any sort of control matchup where they can either like spin it or bind it or something like that. Since I know there's like 1 or 2 decks that can bind. Yeah, it's a little bit sketchy, but the fact that Blaster Dark retires itself through this promo is good, because now it's in the drop zone and they can't actually get rid of it unless they play something like very specific that can like remove from the drop zone. It's a little bit clutch, but yeah, so it's kind of a good and a bad thing that the retire happens, but overall you're mainly just trying to be aggro and trying to get loads of drive checks to try pressure the opponent. And like I said, the critical that PBO has can also help you close that gap as well. So yeah. Now, the deck does have an issue. If you do not see Cliodhna, then you're going to be negging yourself. So this is where the other part of the deck kicks in now, which is cards that are able to generate you advantage. So the first one is Nemain. Because Nemain is just a CB, put a card from your hand to the soul, then draw 2. So it's a +1, pretty simple, but the main point is this allows you to get your dragon to your soul, so you can get the critical from PBO. And like I said, it's a card that can give you card advantage, so it doesn't hurt you as much to retire those 2 rearguards now. So now you can go back to a break even and not feel the pain too much of that. Another card that helps you with card advantage, well, kind of, is the Spiral Cuties. So I'm only doing 3 copies of these because, like I said, these do cost soul. So it's a little bit awkward when it comes to like your Emmeline's, for example. I'll try and move these a little bit down so you can see everything. But yeah, the Emmeline's, with those coming down like the turn 2, it can kind of cause a bit of a weird interaction with the Spiral Cutie with the soul blasting. But I think in terms of preference, I would prioritize the Emmeline just so you can try and dig as much as possible to get to the PBD. so you can get that crit ready for PBO. But if you already have the dragon set up, then I think Spiral Kit would be your next priority, basically. So, yeah. And then late game, she's okay because, yeah, she also gives you pluses because if you Persona Ride, Counterblast, look at top 2, add 1 to hand, put the rest on top or bottom of the deck. So, yeah, just another way to generate card advantage, pretty much. So, 3 copies of those. And then we are still not done with the grade 2s. There is a lot of grade 2s in this deck. I don't know what it is with PBO and PBD, sorry, PBO and MLB, but they just love their grade 2s apparently. So I decided to go for 2 copies of Drilling Angel. This is basically to go with the domains as another way for you to get Dragon into the Soul. So you could always just like discard Dragon for the right deck and then just put it into Soul through the Drilling Angel. That's another way to do it. Another utility that I like with Drilling Angel is that we have a lot of like multiples in the deck, like multiple domains, multiple Cliodhnas, multiple Emmeline's. So you could put one of the multiple cards from your drop zone into the Soul to maybe get one from the top 3 to help refill your board up. It's a little bit more on the RNG side, I understand that, but yeah, it could be like a clutch play that you could do to maybe filter towards a piece that you might want to help reinforce your game state. So I feel like the Drilling Angel is pretty nice for that, and it's also just another way to generate Soul as well, really, because the domains are kind of Soul charges in the deck because you put a card from hand in the Soul, and these also give you Soul. So these help you with the Soul Blasting for like Emmeline, and then another card that Soul Blasts, which I'm really liking in this deck, is the 1 copy of Dowering. So yes, this is why I got the Loire Stride deck set, because I wanted the Shadow Paladin PGs from that deck. Because by playing Dowering in this deck, we are able to add a Shadow Paladin unit from our drop zone to our hand, and this card is a Shadow Paladin PG. So there you go. Synergy. I know, right? Crazy. Yeah, I think like the 1 over this is fine. It's a little bit clutch in just in terms of like getting a specific piece back to your hand. And even if you're not adding the PG to hand, you could always add like a Persona Ride back to set up for the next turn, or maybe add like a domain back to your hand if you want to go for that. And then maybe like get a bit more plussing, get a bit more filtering. I think it's a nice tech choice for the deck, but I wouldn't play more than 1. But the last grade 2, which we're finally here, is 1 Blaster Dark. Because like I said, we do need to play extra copies of Blaster Dark in the main deck. Now, I do feel like at minimum you want to do 1, but you could play 2 in the main deck if you wanted to. Not too sure what to take out, so I'd leave that down to you guys. But I do think you need to play at least 1 or 2 extra copies just to combat against any control decks that could like take away the Blaster Dark from your ride deck, basically. So yeah, it's a necessary that you kind of have to have in the deck just in case, because like I said, if that ride deck Blaster Dark gets, you know, filtered within any sort of way, then the deck kind of falls apart. So yeah, just playing 1 of this in the main deck just for a bit of reassurance. Like I said, we have a lot of filtering and draw power in the deck, so we could get to it pretty reliably. So yeah, that is it for the grade 2s. So going over the grade 1s. So of course, Emmeline can help look for blaster cards. So the nice thing is we can play a Blaster Javelin in here. And you actually kind of need this, because one thing I hate with this promo card, Cliodhna, is this can't hit a Vanguard on its own unless you Persona Ride or you have a booster. So yeah, you kind of need the Javelins to help you with the power sometimes. It can get a little bit awkward, but it is what it is. But it is nice to have the Javelins because it is basically a 10k booster or attacker, and it's also a blaster name, so it can synergize with the Emmeline as well. But yeah, just playing 4 copies of that just to have more searchable targets for the Emmeline and help make a board, essentially. Then, of course, we are playing the 3 Shadow Paladin PGs from the Eris, from the Loire Stride deck set, and of course with it the 1 Elementaria to go along with that. And then the only other grade 1 I decided to put in was basically just 1 copy of Cat. Cat's just nice with the 20k shield. This deck definitely doesn't have a lot of shield value going for it. It's definitely not very defensive. It's definitely more on the aggressive side, which is fine. But yeah, Cat's just there for a bit of filtering if you need it, and mainly the 20k shield, if I'm being honest. So it is what it is. So yeah, 1 copy of Cat, always nice to have. Good generic. So that is it for the grade 1s. So for the triggers, for the OT, I decided to go for the red OT. You could play the blue OT if you wanted to, but I kind of went into this because with us being able to call like Emmeline's down or domains on our turn 2, and also having like a twin drive on turn 2, I feel like with this deck, just having multiple drive checks overall innately gives us a good chance to see red OT for us to get that extra attack out. That could help close games, essentially. But if you want to go for the blue OT for the crit and the recycle, then that's also fine. But I'll be honest, my red OT is kind of spare right now. Deck's not using it, so PBO is getting it. All right, so there we go. And then for the other triggers, we're playing 4 more crit. And, 4 crit with the 3 more crit, I should say. So 7 crit in total because I did decide to go for the 4 draw, like I said, to help us get some more card advantage going for us to set back the 2 retires for PBO. If you wanted to go for 8 crit, I understand that as well, because like I said, the passive crit from PBO can also close games out, so 8 crit also kind of works in this deck. But it's to your fancy, like 8 crit, 3 draw, 7 crit, 4 draw, whatever you fancy, go for it. So, yeah. And then, of course, we have the 4 heal trigger as well. And that is it for the triggers. So, cards are going everywhere. But yeah, that is it for the PBO deck. So, the deck is interesting, I'd say. It definitely feels like it's definitely trying to do something. It is. But it's, it definitely feels like it needs something else to sort of streamline it a bit better. Not too sure exactly what that would be, but yeah, but it's fun. It's a cool aggro deck. Of course, PBO is just an iconic unit anyway, so any Shadow Paladin fans will always appreciate the units. But yeah, if you guys have any ideas for the deck, do drop it in the comment section below. There will be a deck log with the deck list as well for you to get an overview of the deck. But yeah, we are almost in DivineZ era now. I think the start decks are coming out this month, so we will have like the Energy Crest and all this at some point. I do have some other decks I want to profile. I'm not too sure when I'm going to do them because, again, it's kind of like an awkward lineup with like the new mechanics coming out with the Energy Crest and all this, so and just DivineZ in general. So we'll see. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. And yeah, it's nice to see PBO again, right? So, yeah. Anyway, that's me. This is Guardian, signing out.